Hello, welcome to the Sage 300 training session. Today's topic will be accounts receivable and customers. Let's go to the accounts receivable module, AR customers, and the customer screen. Customer numbers in Sage 300 can be alphanumeric, i.e. they can be numbers, letters, or a combination thereof. Let's take a look at our first customer, Bargain Mart in San Diego. So we have a customer number, and then we have their name. The next field is national account. National account is like a parent-child relationship. A customer can be part of a larger organization that is a national account. Please note that the national account functionality is separately licensed, so you may need to inquire with your business partner about access to this particular function. We have a business registration number and a group code. Please note that the group code is mandatory just like the customer number is. Most of the other fields are optional. The group code is mandatory because it provides a couple key pieces of information. It provides information on what is the account set, which defines the accounts receivable trade account GL number. It also defines the terms codes. Customer groups can be used for merely just associating different customers of a similar type together, or they can be used for pre-populating different combinations of terms codes, interest profiles, billing cycles. We'll explore what all those mean as we go through this training. We have a couple more fields: on hold and inactive and last maintained. The last maintained is the date that the last activity was performed on this account. On hold and inactive have some similarities, but yet they are also different. On hold will block any new invoices from posting onto a customer, but will allow other transactions such as credit notes and payments onto the account. Whereas inactive blocks all future transactions. So an account should have a zero balance before it is marked inactive. The next bits of information are fairly straightforward: name and address. There's also fields for phone numbers, emails, and a website. There's also a plain text field if you want to put a code in for a territory. This is often useful in reporting. Our next tab shows contact information. In this case, we have a contact, Mr. Jose Grange. There's also a section down below in newer versions of Sage 300 called multiple contacts. Most Sage customers should be licensed to this. However, those who have been on Sage 300 for a long time may need to have this module activated in their environment. The multiple contacts allows for multiple people to be entered onto a customer and then control which documents does that particular person receive. So in this case, we only have one contact person in here, and they receive AR invoices, AR receipts, and AR statements, but no information from the order entry module. We can create a new contact or maintain a contact with these buttons down here below. Let's go ahead and create a new contact. When we're ready, we can hit the add button and then close. We've now added that person to the multiple contacts. We can then come over and go through this grid and say they're going to receive certain types of transactions. Maybe just order confirmations, invoices, and credit notes from OE and statements from accounts receivable. A significant chunk of the information on the processing tab is inherited from the customer group that we set up on the very first tab. So for instance, the account type and the print statement function. Open item is going to show the items that have not yet been paid on a statement. There's also an option called balance forward. That is more like a credit card statement where it shows the ending balance as the last time the statement was run, and then all the activity since that period in time. There is the account set, which defines which GL accounts are used in the accounts receivable module. There's the terms code, which helps control when a document should be paid by. The billing cycle, which does two things. It identifies what address should payment be remitted to, and how frequently are we going to generate statements. The interest profile defines what finance charges, if any, will be assessed to this customer. And then there is the payment code. This defines the primary method of payment that customer is expected to make. The next field is delivery method. We have a few options in here: mail, email, customer, contact, and multiple contacts. Mail is the default option. That means you're going to print out a document and send it to the customer, be that an invoice, a statement, or something else. If email is used and the print destination on the particular report is set to customer, then it will email the document to the customer. And the email that it sends it to is dependent upon the option selected here. The customer option will go to the email address on the very first address tab. If it's the contact option, it's going to use the email address put here in this field. And if it's multiple contacts, it's going to use the appropriate email addresses listed in here based on the document type. You have an option for controlling the check language on a refund check. You have fields for tracking credit bureau information. The Issue Credit Warning section allows you to instruct accounts receivable and by extension order entry to issue a warning to a user when certain criteria are met. The total outstanding balance exceeds the credit limit. This option will issue a warning when the outstanding balance is greater than the credit limit for the customer. AR transaction overdue by and limits, these will issue a warning when there are overdue transactions greater than the number of days selected or the overdue balance is greater than the limit entered here. These also extend to orders placed and processed in order entry. Furthermore, there's a currency function on here that's also set by the customer group. So it is important to note that if you are in a multi-currency situation, a customer can only be a single currency. All transactions for that customer must be in the currency defined on here. So if you have a customer who pays in different currencies, then you need to have different variations of that customer set up. Customer, say 1000 USD and customer 1000 CAD for both US and Canadian dollars. On the invoicing tab, we have some more fields that can be predefined that will help facilitate the processing of transactions within Sage. There is a price list, which if you use the order entry module will flow down into the order and define what prices should be used on a transaction. A default inventory location, so when an order is placed, what warehouse should that product be coming out of? And a ship via, what shipping method is predominantly the one to be used for this particular customer. There are a few other controls on here, like should we allow partial shipments, allow back orders for a particular customer, and the checking for duplicate POs from that customer. There's a section where we can enter salespersons. We can have up to 5 salespersons on a given customer. If you have more than one salesperson, you can allocate the amount of commission across those salespeople. Please note that the amount of commission, the percentage here, must total 100%. So here we have 2 salespeople and they each get 50% of the sales commission. The percentage split here is not how much of the sale the salesperson is going to get, but more a definition of, for a given amount of commission, what percentage of that commission amount should each salesperson receive. The next block is for sales taxes. You can select a tax group from your list of acceptable taxes. Please note that in multi-currency companies, your sales tax must correspond to the currency that your customer is set up with. So since this is a US dollar customer, they must either have the California or the US tax code assigned to them, because those are the only ones that have a tax reporting currency of US dollars. Based on the tax group assigned, multiple tax authorities can appear down in here, each with their own tax class. You can then put a different registration number in them if you have received different documents from your customer, like a resale certificate indicating that they should not be charged tax. The tax class to use will be based upon the setup and configuration of your taxes within the tax module. Finally, if retainage has been enabled in your organization, the retainage percentage, retention period, and terms for that for retainage invoices can be set up and configured in this final section down here. Exploring the remaining fields, we have one for optional fields. Optional fields, sometimes called user-defined fields, are set up on a company-by-company basis to accommodate additional pieces of information that the standard fields in the screen are not able to contain. So in this particular case, we have things like what UPS zone is this customer in? What's the due date grace period? Maybe a note, a preferred customer flag, different things that are meaningful to this particular organization. There's a statistics tab, which tracks information, historical information by year and period for invoices, receipts, discounts, etc., and contains a days to pay calculation down here. On the activity tab, there's more information about what's the highest balance, last invoice date, and so on. And finally, there's a comments field. The comments do not trigger any additional alerts, but can be used to place notes within a customer. In addition to the customer screen, the Ship To location screen is an important one. This allows an organization to have multiple warehouses and addresses tracked in Sage. So in the case of Mr. Ronald Black here, we have two different addresses that we are maintaining, a home office and a warehouse. By clicking on one, I can see the more details of this screen. I have my customer number, and then for each address must have a location code. It is the combination of the two that defines the uniqueness of the record. It contains address information, an opportunity for a contact at that particular location, and then any specific invoicing information that is unique to the Ship To location. This could be something like a different warehouse location or a different tax group. So for instance, if you have two locations, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast, you can put in different warehouses that you want the product to come from, or perhaps different tax groups because you need to report to different states or provinces. And again, we have an optional field tab. If the record is tagged as primary Ship To, then when invoices are created in Accounts Receivable or orders are created in Order Entry, those transactions will default their shipping address to the Ship To location here. If it's blank, it just becomes a possible selection, but it's not mandatory to go to that particular location. Instead, if no primary Ship To is listed for a customer, the Ship To location will default to the customer's bill to information as defined in the customer record. The final screen that we want to look at today in this particular training is the customer inquiry screen. The customer inquiry screen is a great place to come in and get an overview picture of the health of a particular customer. You can enter the customer number or use the finder to find the one that you're interested in. There's a tab that will show you customer specific information that is set up that controls the different activity functions within the customer. There's an address, a tax and salesperson screen, a credit status screen. Note that you can do a little mini aging right here on this screen and define age by, I want to use my due date or a document date, a cutoff date, and then it will show you your aging buckets. It will also show you things like average days to pay, number of open invoices, and of course, perhaps most important, the outstanding credit balance. We can see here the comments, the optional fields, the ship to addresses, are there any recurring charges set up on this particular customer, and the various activity and statistics for that customer. In the next row of information, and please note that when you click on it, those rows flip-flop, we have the Documents tab. By default, this shows the open documents, i.e. the ones that have a balance still in the AR aging. These can be open credit notes, invoices, prepayments. When there are offsets for them, we can see those offsets, what they've been applied to, down in this Applied Transactions grid. And when we look at other transactions, we can see what GL codes have been utilized and what's the line item details for that particular transaction. And going across, we can see lots of different information from the document number, the document date and the due date, whether they're fully paid, in which case, since we've not included the fully paid here, we only have where it is not yet fully paid. We have our current balance, the original total, any applied amounts, any possible discounts, plus other information that you can explore within this grid. Finally, by double-clicking on a transaction, you can actually drill down into its underlying transaction. So we first go to a document inquiry, and then by clicking on the drill down further, I can drill into the underlying transaction here. And I can continue to further go down. In this case, this is a project and job costing entry, so I'm taken to APJC billing worksheet. If this had been an order entry transaction, I could have been taken down to the underlying invoice from the order entry screen. There's also separate screens for receipts, refunds, adjustments, pending transactions. Pending transactions are transactions where they've been entered into Sage but not yet posted. Typically, you see payments that are being processed as the receivables department is processing up transactions for the day, processing the mail, receiving those various checks that have come in or payments that have been received electronically, entering them into the system, but have not yet posted them. You can see open orders. You can see different invoices from order entry. And there's also a sales summary here from order entry that's available. If any contract pricing has been set up, you can see that here on the contract pricing tab. Couple more things to note here on the document tab. You can further refine your view by selecting different document types and checking and unchecking the various boxes up here. You can find transactions that are older and have been fully paid by checking on the include fully paid and then hitting your refresh button, and you will see older transactions. You can then also sort by a number of different values in here. So for instance, the document date will sort it by date, by the document date here in this particular field. And if we say, notice that all these are 2019, if we say 1/1/2020, we jump down and the first transaction now presented is one that is just after our starting value that we entered there. So it is a way to kind of help you find transactions that may be older and you know roughly when they happened, and you can then filter down and kind of get a little closer to your target. And then there's an option here for including pending amounts. And that concludes this training on the Accounts Receivable module and customers. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.